If you're looking for more money, more success, to be a better property investor, you're going to love today's show because I'm going to share 3 important concepts with you. In the first section of the show, I'm going to share with you 7 tips to a better financial future. In my mindset moment, I'm going to explain to you the big investment that the rich make that the poor don't. So if you want to become rich, you better understand this. And then I'm going to have a chat with my business partner, Brett Warren, Director of Metropole Properties in Brisbane, and ask him what lessons he would like to have known earlier in life with regard to property and just general success in life that would have made him a better investor and a better person today. Lots to cover, so welcome to today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the 5th time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
Since you're listening to this podcast, I assume you're looking for more success, more property investment success, and more money in your life. That's what we talk about, isn't it? In fact, most Australians want more money. But for most of them, their problem isn't actually earning more money, it's keeping the money they've earned. So I'd like to have a bit of a chat about what they're doing wrong, because it's usually their bad money habits that are letting them down. So let's have a look at a number of personal finance tips that you should understand to help you be better with your money management. I guess the first one is start paying attention to your finances. See, many people just seem to ignore their spending habits and just hope everything's going to work out. By the way, hope's not a good finance strategy. Instead, you should choose a system that works for you. You should get involved in a form of budgeting so that you understand where your money's going, whether it's an app, a spreadsheet or something else. Find a system that tracks your spending and budget. So first of all, have a look at where your money's going. The second step of a budget is actually not to see where it's been, but to allocate where your money's going. That's the big mistake a lot of people make with budgeting. They just see where it's been. But when you have little piles of money or little jars of money and you know where your money's going, it's amazing what you're going to discover about your spending and how you can use it more effectively. I guess the next step is to faithfully follow your budget. So once you've created a budget, as I said, it's not about what happened in the past. It's actually having the discipline to put into action where you've allocated your funds, how much is discretionary spending, how much is on the fixed expenses that you've got. If you don't do that, don't bother budgeting and you're never going to grow your wealth. Another tip is to keep track of your net worth. Your net worth is what's left over after you calculate your assets, things you own, and your liabilities, in other words, your debt. So just like a company keeps a profit and loss, which is their money going in and out, and a balance sheet, which is what they're worth, you should similarly keep your profit and loss, your budgets, and your balance sheet, in other words, what your net worth is. And unfortunately, for most Australians, their net worth isn't very high. So the next step is to set yourself some financial goals, but then you actually got to write them down. So once you've done all these initial sums, how much do you want to pay off? By when? What are you going to plan for in the future? How much do you want to have? How much are you going to be able to achieve? And don't live in a fantasy. Make it realistic. Make a plan and take action. So to secure your financial future, bring your future into the present, decide what you want, and then make a plan to achieve what you want to achieve. Become the person you want to become. The next tip is that for many Australians, you're first going to have to pay off your debts before you can move to the next level. So pay off your debts as quickly as you can, because debt takes away your options and debt takes away your future financial freedom. So the sooner you can get rid of it, the sooner you can start pursuing your dreams and living your life on your own terms. So create a list of each of your debts, how much it is, and maybe the current interest rate. Once you've got a list completed, you can figure out which of your debts to pay off first. Usually you pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first, and then you're going to feel better as you're slowly reducing your debt. Of course, an underlying fundamental of financial freedom is spending less than you earn. So that's one of the things you've got to work out when you do your budget. Spend less than you earn and start saving the rest. Start small. Start saving a little bit of money each week. If it's not paying off your debt, then save. Of course, first I'd be paying off your debts. So pay the bill, buy whatever you need to buy this month, this week, whenever you get your paycheck, and then keep some set aside. By the way, that's what the government does. The government takes your tax out before you get it because they know that if they wait till later, you may not have it. So similarly, you should set aside that portion for debt reduction, that portion for saving, that portion for charity before you spend on your daily, weekly living allowances. And if you slowly do that, the money's going to add up over time. Now, a big part of money management is never buying anything on impulse. It's just too easy to do nowadays, isn't it? Because you don't even have to take cash out of your pocket. You don't even have to put a PIN number in if the amount you're buying is under $100. You just tap and go with your card or even your phone now. You don't have to take out your phone. So one of the best ways to help prevent buying impulse items is to make a shopping list and stick to it. Of course, if you're thinking, I really, really need that, and online shopping is an easy way to get caught as well, put it in the shopping cart, but don't click buy just yet. Just go away, and if tomorrow you still do need it or want it, then maybe consider clicking going ahead. When you're buying things, do your research before purchasing extended warranty items on items you bought. You know, that's like when you go and you buy something, they say, would you like a 3-year warranty with that? That's like when you go to McDonald's, they make the most money when they say, would you like fries with that? Because often these extended warranties are a waste of money. Another area of money management you should consider is paying attention to your mortgage interest rates, whether it's your home loan or your investment loans, because after you bought a property and after you've set your loans, banks' rates change, sometimes up, sometimes down, and they're not, unless you're locked in, they're not fixed. So you can, if you ask, get lower fees or get lower interest rates, and that's where it's worthwhile annually checking how your property portfolio is going, checking how your loan's going, having a chat with your mortgage broker about it. Another quick tip is to check your credit card statements every month. A lot of people just pay the amount that's there. And that's, of course, something you have to do. You should pay off your credit card debts every month. But having said that, many people don't actually check for errors, for signs of fraud or identity theft, something you should watch out for because identity theft is getting bigger and bigger. Of course, I mentioned a moment ago, you've got to pay your bills on time because if you do so, you avoid paying needless late fees and pay your credit card on time. In other words, never really take anything out on your credit card, never buy anything with your credit card that you can't pay off by the end of the month. Now, I know a lot of people pay the minimum monthly amount on your card. That's the worst thing you can do because you'll never ever, well, you will pay it off maybe 20, 25 years. So pay much, much more. But I suggest that you don't buy anything on your credit card that you can't afford because the money on your credit card isn't yours because it's actually not money. And if it's a debit card, yeah, that's money you've put in there, but it's basically the bank's money on your credit card that you are paying for the privilege of using, and you're paying it often quite a high rate. Of course, another fundamental of good money management is to understand that there's bad debt, like I've just explained, but there's also good debt. Good debt like buying a home, which I sometimes call necessary debt because that's an appreciating asset. And even though it's not income producing, it's an asset that's going up, or borrowing for appreciating assets like good investment grade real estate, because that's the way to your financial future. Now, here's another thing that you should avoid as part of your money management plan. Avoid gambling and avoid the lottery. A lot of people see that as their only way out. And they say, look, it's just a little bit of fun. But lottery is really a tax for people who can't do maths because you can't win. Maybe while we're on to things to avoid, have you ever looked at how much you're paying for cigarettes? I know a number of people who are paying a fortune every week. Apart from the obvious health problems, it's a huge financial burden to these people that means that they just can't save. They can't get ahead. Now, another money tip I'd like to share with you is avoid the temptation to keep up with the Joneses. Learn to be happy with what you've got. We've tended to become obsessed with the idea of acquiring stuff. We get this quick hormonal hit that makes us feel good. But what you've really got to do is learn to appreciate what you've got now. Learn to be grateful for what you've got. Take a look around and see that you've got a lot to be thankful for. And when you're looking at people's Facebook or Instagram, you're looking at their highlight reel. You're not looking at what's happening in their real lives. You're not seeing how much credit card debt they've really got to get there. So don't compare yourself with anybody else. Now, I'm not saying don't enjoy your life. I'm not saying be frugal. I'm saying be careful with your spending, but you've also got to enjoy the journey. If you don't enjoy the journey, you're not going to enjoy the destination. So, of course, you should occasionally reward yourself, reward your family, splurge, but maybe on experiences, on things that you're going to remember, things you're going to enjoy. It's been shown over and over again that good experiences leave longer lasting pleasure and satisfaction than buying stuff. As we're going through a list of money management tips to help you become more financially free, I'm going to suggest that you set up an emergency fund. Everyone should have a fund of between 3 and 6 months of living expenses or security money set aside for a rainy day. And this has nothing to do with your offset for your financial buffers for your property investments. This is for your personal emergencies in case you get sick, in case you get unwell, in case income doesn't come in, and have it in either a savings account or an offset account. If you've got loans, an offset account is a great way to do it. But then avoid the urge to tap into your emergency fund for non-emergencies. Of course, you also should have financial buffers for your property investments to buy you time, because smart property investors buy themselves time as well as properties to see them through the ups and downs. By the way, make the most of tax deductions. So get a system to help you organise all the tax deductions that you can get for your property investments or your business or whatever. A program such as Evernote's a great way of keeping track of all the tax information in the one place, and you can pull it out at tax time. So I guess what I'm saying is, apart from your property investment business or your other business, treat your household like a business. Take an active role in managing your personal finances. Look at ways of maximising your income and minimising your outgoings. Budget carefully, and that way you're going to ensure a brighter financial future for you and your family. In a moment, I'm going to share with you my mindset moment where I explain the big investment that the rich do that the poor and the average person doesn't. Something to listen to, because I hope it's going to give you some insight, because it's probably not what you think it's going to be. And then I'm going to have a chat with my business partner, Brett Warren, Director of Metropole Properties in Brisbane, and ask him a couple of questions, including what lessons would he have liked to have known when he started to make him a better investor today, and also just some great tips on success. You can always learn from other people's successes and I guess from their failures. It's just too hard to become a successful property investor on your own. And you've probably heard me say it before, if you're the smartest person in your room, you're in trouble. And that's why I'm so pleased many of you are reaching out and allowing the team at Metropole to be part of your wealth creation journey. You've probably recognised that it's just too hard to get the perspective to do it on your own. And our team's been involved in over $3 billion worth of property transactions. Currently, our property management division looks after close to $2 billion worth of properties. So we know what works, what doesn't work. We've got a strategy that's known, proven and trusted. And by the way, we don't sell property, which means our advice can be unbiased, and we have our own on-the-ground team. So we don't fly in and out from state to state. We've got our own on-the-ground teams in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. But we started all by helping you formulate a strategic property plan, something that's going to give you clarity about what's possible for you specifically. Just as importantly, we actually tell you what's realistic and what isn't. And if you've got somebody holding your hand, showing you the sort of properties that you're going to need, the sort of cash flow you're going to need, what you can achieve, wouldn't that be worth something to you? If we can show you through putting a strategic plan together for you, what your next steps are, or how your current portfolio is performing and will it actually get you to where you want to be, what would that be worth to you? So why not go to metropole.com.au and leave us your details, metropole.com.au, and allow my award-winning team to help you get some clarity in these uncertain times in the property markets. And as I said, since we've got no properties for sale, our advice is unbiased and won multiple awards. We're doing something right, and I'd love to be part of your wealth creation journey.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
I'd like to share with you one surprising investment that separates the rich from the poor. And it's how you invest your time, because that's going to determine how your financial future is going to unfold. I see lots of people who say to me, Michael, I can't invest at the moment because I'm too poor. Now, they don't use those words. They usually say something like, oh, Michael, I can't invest because I don't have enough money. And I tell them, if you don't have any money, invest your time. Unfortunately, most people don't have enough time to invest either. Why? Because they think that working harder or longer is going to make them richer. Unfortunately, nothing could be further from the truth. At my seminars, I ask attendees, hey, put up your hands if you work really hard, and almost everybody in the room does. And then I say, keep up your hands if you're a multi-millionaire, and almost every hand goes down. The problem is most of us are working harder, but the inflation-adjusted wage that people are getting today, the average middle-class person, has stayed stagnant or, in fact, has declined when you take into account the cost of living. Clearly, working more doesn't mean making more or keeping more. And that's part of the reason the poor stay poor. If you ask most people why they're doing all this work, they're going to tell you it's for more money. By this, I guess they're saying, I'm going to have a steady paycheck, I'm going to have some security, I'm going to have a job. Money is one of the primary reasons many people take on thousands of dollars worth of HECS debt or university debt or loans to get a degree for a high-paying job that they don't even like, but they're going to spend most of their working hours doing. All the while, the things that they really love in life sit on the sidelines waiting them to finish working. The problem with this approach is you can only make money as long as you work. The only thing of value you're selling is your time. So in order to make more money, you've got to work longer hours, and that's physically taxing. There's only so much you can do because you've only got a finite amount of time. You've only got a certain amount of energy as an employee. That's why I suggest you become a business owner or investor, because an employee, you'll never get to the next rung. On the other hand, if you speak to most rich people and you ask them what they're working for, they're going to tell you they're working to build assets. By this, they mean investments or businesses that provide steady cash flow each month, whether they're working or not. Instead of spending their life working for money, the rich understand how to make money work for them because they've become financially fluent. They understand the big difference between growing their assets and working for a paycheck. They realize that by adding assets, that doesn't require them to work longer. It doesn't make them work harder. In fact, the more financially fluent you are, the less you're going to have to work to acquire high-quality assets. The sort of assets that are going to grow in value over time and provide you with passive income, even when you're on vacation, even when you're not working. In other words, the rich have learned how to make their money work for them. But it's not just their own money. They understand the benefit of using other people's money as well. They know how to use other people's money to make them rich. They use the bank's money to get leverage and gear and get a better return on their own funds. They use their tenants' money to help subsidise the mortgage repayments. They use the government's money in a way of getting tax deductions, incentives, depreciation allowances, negative gearing. The other big difference is the rich plan to get rich. That's not to say the rich don't work. They do, but they work differently to the average person. They start by planning their future. They set goals and they bring their future into the present so they can plan, so they can budget. And they plan to become the person they plan to become. And they also invest in their financial education because they know their income won't grow beyond their personal growth. So they work harder on themselves than they do on their job. They don't wish the world of investing were easier. They don't wish the business world were easier. They don't wish that it would be easier to get ahead in their profession. Instead, they make sure that they get better by slowly and steadily and continuously learning and growing by investing in their financial education. Now, I'm speaking to the converted. You're actually listening to this podcast about growing your wealth. So thank you. You're already on the right track. But to be frank, I wasn't always wealthy. My parents were immigrants to Australia. I came here at the age of 3. I grew up in a household where the money ran out before the month, didn't there? Arguments and fights about money. But I invested my time to secure my financial future by getting a financial education, even when I had no money to speak of. Today, many, many years later, I'm enjoying the fruits of that education. I now got the money that works hard for me, whether I'm here or not. I've now built a cash machine. But it takes time to build a cash machine out of residential real estate. You've heard me say it before. Warren Buffett actually said it. Wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient. So how about you? What are you working for? What are you investing your time in? Are you working towards building an asset base so that your money is going to work for you? Or do you spend your days toiling at a job you hate in order to make money? If that's the case, what's holding you back? I encourage you to start investing in your financial future today and building your financial future through the power of owning growth assets, income-producing assets, residential real estate. And that's why twice a week I'm sharing with you the Michael Yardney podcast to give you ideas about money, success, and property investment to help get you out of the rat race. Welcome, Brett.
Thanks, Michael.
Now, Brett, I've known you for over a decade. You were initially a client of Metropole, then you became a buyer's agent, you became a property strategist, and for a while now, you've been my business partner and a Director of Metropole Properties in Brisbane. So you've had a very successful journey in the property industry, but also as an investor. So my question to you would be, what lesson would you have liked to have known when you started that would make you a better property investor today?
Yeah, the number one lesson I would like to have learnt was that location does 80% of the heavy lifting. I got caught up in all the hype, like most investors do, with looking for a hot spot or, a cash flow positive property to improve my short-term circumstances. But I really should have been focusing on the longer term and looking at the areas that grow in value faster, the known, proven and trusted areas. They're the areas that successful investors look for, and they're the areas that they buy in, and they look at growing their wealth and creating wealth by buying in these locations. And they're the kind of things that I would like to have learnt first off.
Sure. And what you did was what a lot of investors do first off and look for maybe a bit of cash flow. Having said that, though, the location doesn't change and won't change. So while you can improve the property and you can change the property manager and you can renovate or redevelop, it's the location that won't change. And in Australia, it's clear we've got statistics back at Metropole going back 30 years for almost every suburb in Australia that it's some suburbs that have always outperformed and will continue to do so because of the demographics, the people that are in there, the people who can afford more. And it's not a judge of people, but it really has to do with the demographics of people being able to afford and prepared to pay more to live in those locations. And as our cities become bigger, that's going to become even more so. The distance you've got to go further out for cheap accommodation is going to be further and further away. So that's a great lesson to start with. Location does 80% of the heavy lifting. And then, of course, you can't just buy any property in that location. What's the next lesson that you would have liked to know a bit earlier on?
Probably the next lesson would be choosing capital growth over cash flow. A lot of people focus on that short-term injection, maybe $5,000 or $10,000 extra a year, but that's not really going to change your life, and it's not going to create a passive ongoing income over the longer term. So we all know that focusing on growing and widening your asset base over the longer term, that's going to be able to provide that income or provide that passive income later in life. So I guess, I lost a lot of time by looking at cash flow rather than investing in those well-located areas we just discussed before and focusing on widening my asset base.
Well, it's not unusual because lots of others have done that as well. So I believe there's 3 stages in your property investment journey. The first one is learning and educating yourself and putting a plan together. The next one is actually building your asset base, and then you can eventually get cash flow, but asset growth first. And you mentioned $5,000, $10,000 a year. Most properties won't even deliver that, even cash flow positive properties, and then you've got to pay tax on it. So if you do the spreadsheets as we do when we sit with our clients, when we sit with them and do a strategic property plan and map out the alternatives and show the numbers and figures, because most people never have gone to the trouble of sitting down and running those sort of spreadsheets to see, you'll find that the majority of what you own when you slow down, when you retire, isn't money you've saved. It's not rent that you've earned. It's not superannuation you've put away. It's capital growth. And the reason that's the case is because it's in a tax-free environment, so you don't even have to pay tax on it. So the compounding works even better. And for most Australians, it's just their home because that's all they own. For those 3 million people who own an investment property, it's actually, if they own the right property, the capital growth of their investment property. Two great lessons for investors. Brett, number one, location does the heavy lifting. Number two, smart property investors invest for capital growth. And somehow the two are pretty much related, aren't they? They sort of go hand in hand.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think, absolutely.
Now, over the years, I've actually seen you grow as a person. You started off as a client of Metropole, then you became one of our buyer's agents, and over time, you became a property strategist and then a senior property strategist, and now a director and my business partner in Metropole in Brisbane. So let's ask some advice, some success advice. What are the tips you'd like to share about success?
Yeah, look, I always used to think that success would be a big occurrence or a big event, something really special. Maybe I'd win lotto or get a promotion or flip a property and make a substantial amount of money. But I've since learned that success comes from a series of small steps in the right direction. We watched the video the other day talking about improving yourself perhaps 1% per day. And that's really what success is, improving your mindset, expanding your knowledge, and all those types of things can really work hard to change your circumstances. And also your habits is one thing I've picked up as well. Being more productive and working towards a longer-term goal that you're committed to.
That's a really good point. So success is a long-term journey, and along the way, as we've mentioned before, there's lots of little failures, and to be a success, you've also probably got to be a success at failing and just get up one more time than everybody else. And part of that also then is being able to delay gratification, understanding that you've actually, to be successful in the future, you've actually got to make some sacrifices in the short term. Second success tip, Brett, what would you like to share?
Something else I've only learnt recently, and obviously you've talked about a lot, is successful people have multiple streams of income. So in most cases, if you're earning $50,000 per annum or $500,000 per annum, your savings or your level of income is capped. And you can't save your way to wealth or success. So you need to expand your asset base. You need to generate multiple streams of income. And you can do that from property, shares and business. I've found it worked well with property, as obviously yourself, Michael. But, if you're solely relying on your salary, it's a difficult path to wealth.
That makes a good point. And in fact, most successful business people, entrepreneurs, investors recognise that. Now, that doesn't mean you've got to diversify widely. And in fact, in property and residential real estate, it's a bit hard to diversify initially because it's lumpy. But it's a really good way to start by having your own job and on the side having a property investment business, which will start off with just one property, and over time it'll build, and then you'll have multiple properties, and so multiple streams of income, multiple ways of protecting your financial future. 4 great lessons with property and success there. Thanks very much for your time, Brett.
Thanks, Michael. Good to be with you.
Well, as always, we covered a lot in today's show, and I hope you got benefit from it. If you did, please pass the message forward to help somebody else benefit as well. Just like I'm trying to help you become more financially fluent, I'd love you to be able to pass the message forward through social media or any way you like. Just tell people about the Michael Yardney podcast. If you'd like to find out more in between these shows that I'm now sending you twice a week, you can subscribe to my Property Update daily newsletter, where you get a heap of experts give you new information every day on property, tax, finance, money, success. propertyupdate.com.au. That's where you can subscribe and find it. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon. In the meantime, spend your time wisely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?